than polyester and rayon. And her hair was real. A gorgeous, thick, blonde fishtail plait that draped over her tiny shoulders oh so perfectly. That was where the perfection ended. She'd been glaring at me and Ruby ever since we arrived, following us around as we set up, telling us we were doing everything wrong, demanding she won every party game, and generally being a miniature bitch. Her parents just smiled and laughed, as though she was being especially cute or entertaining. Obviously, money didn't buy parenting skills. My mum and dad would have killed me if I'd been that rude to anyone. The grown-ups were all sitting around at white cloth tables, sipping expensive-looking wine and wrapped up in barber jackets and posh pashminas. The women were perfectly made up and a bit Botoxy, and the men were tanned and fit and looked like they went skiing every winter. It was very different from the world I usually lived in. A tiny, two-bedroomed flat near the city centre. That was what the letting agent said. In reality, it was Dingle, that I shared with Ruby. Ruby, and more often, her boyfriend Keith. Keith was 15 years older than Ruby, carried a selfie stick around wherever he went, and in my opinion, was a huge sleaze bag. But that was one of those opinions you have to keep to yourself, until she dumped him, and then I could really let rip. Still, at least our flat wasn't inhabited by Jocelyn, who was staring at me with really evil eyes as I made my way, heels sinking into the mud, towards the central area we designated as our performance spot. I tried to ignore her as I smiled and took my position, feeling the first drops of rain land on my face as I did. She made it pretty hard, though, by pointing at me and yelling, "That's not the real Elsa. That's just a silly woman who gave out the jelly." Big laughs from the mums and dads at that one. Screeches from the other kids. And torrential rain now pouring down on my head as if God was emptying a bucket all over me. It was all right for them. They were all sheltered beneath a huge gazebo. And even though it was billowing in the wind, it was keeping them dry. The rain draining off in rivulets down the side and onto the soggy grass. Ruby was under there as well, and I felt a moment of pure hatred for her as she gave me a thumbs up and a huge fake grin. At least I thought it was fake. Maybe she was just really happy to see me out there on my own, soaking wet, blue polyester frock clinging to my skin, being heckled by a group of 5-year-old sadists as my Elsa braid repeatedly thumped me across the forehead. I switched on the handheld microphone and waited until Ruby flicked on the backing track. She'd pulled the equipment under the gazebo with her as well, which was a pretty sensible idea. Otherwise she might get electrocuted. This way, I thought, looking at the snow machine and the wires stretching out to an extension plug, at least only one of us would get electrocuted. Me. I glanced up at the heavens as the now intensely familiar opening chords of Let It Go kicked in. The sky was completely black now, almost as though there'd been a total eclipse of the sun. I said a quick prayer to the patron saint of children's party entertainers, and if there isn't one, there really should be, and asked very nicely if any lightning that was planned could hold off for the next 10 minutes at least. I wasn't at all keen on that electrocution thing. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath and let it go. However wet I was, however tired I was, however itchy that dress was, I loved to sing. Even this, which I'd done over and over and over again for so long, still had the power to lift my spirits. It was a beautiful song, and an absolute dream to perform. I tried to avoid Jocelyn's gaze. I suspected her eyes were glowing red like an evil child from a horror film by now, and threw myself into it heart and soul. That's what I was paid to do. And more importantly, that's what I loved doing. Things might not have worked out quite the way I'd hoped when I was 18.